Hey, this is episode number 60 of the UpRev Ninja podcast, and I'm your host, Tom Hudson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UpRev Ninja podcast. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining us. This show is produced each week with the single intent of discovering the tips, tricks, hacks, and lessons learned from our guests that has catapulted them into living the best version of themselves. Join your host, Tom Hudson, as he continues his search for the best methods to uprev his life. Now, let's dive into the show.
Colin Clapp is a dad, partner, coach, and internet marketer, speaker, and an aging digital nomad. He's a host of Parenting Passports and Profit podcast and The Family Techie. He's committed to lifelong learning, so loves books, podcast videos, and having way too many tabs open in his browser. When he's not enjoying daddy-daughter days, family time, or some kind of personal development, he gets excited by a day on a snowboard. The rest of the time, you'll find him chilling out with a BBC Sports website. Hey, welcome to the UpRev Ninja podcast. Today I've got Colin Clapp with me. How you doing today, Colin?
I'm doing very good, Tom. It's Monday morning in Malaysia.
Wow, yeah. So you mentioned earlier when we were just chatting, it's hot and humid there, right?
Yep, I spend all my time. I'm sitting here in bare feet, shorts and t-shirt, and that is my everyday wear these days.
I'm here in New England, about an hour north of Boston, and it's like 75 right now, and It's been raining all day. So I'm going to complain about the heat and humidity here. So,
okay, you go for it.
Well, I'm really excited to talk to you today. You've actually have got the Parenting Passports and Profits. I've read a couple of books about like permanent travelers, I've got friends that do that. I have friends that do this, that travel the world with their family, and I've heard their stories, and yours was a little different as well as pretty much the same as theirs. But every time I've talked to someone that's done this or is doing it, it's fascinating to me, and I've never had anyone like this on the show. So I'd love for you to kind of dive in and tell us like who you are and how you got to this point where you're at in life today.
Great question. And a year ago, I would not have imagined I was going to be here. Depending on what context you look at it, from a spiritual or a huge visionary point of view, you might say, no, you was always going in this direction. But a year ago, we were not going in this direction and did not foresee. In fact, it is virtually a year to the week that we... So I was born in England, but I am now a New Zealand citizen, and I have lived in New Zealand for 12 to 13 years, and that's where I met my partner, and we have a 3-year-old little girl. So I turned 51 recently, and came to the parenting party pretty late, but she's the reason for everything now, and we are really committed to having a good family life, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit more. But a year ago, we were living in New Zealand, and we were running an online business selling organic groceries. We got involved with that about 18 months before. Tom, can I ask you a question? Have you read or played Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow 101?
I've read, I have read, I think, the book many years ago, but yes.
Okay, but you've not played the game?
I have not, no.
No, there's a game called, there's a game spin-off of it called Cash Flow 101 or something, Cash Flow. It might just be Cash Flow. But it's how you get out the rat race with all the sort of ways of life throws you curveballs, and also how you make money so that you can live off passive income.
Okay.
And without going into too much detail, because obviously not all your listeners would have played the game as well, but there's part of the game is that during the game you have well, I've said what it is. There's the dice lands you on certain things called opportunities, and you pick up a card, an opportunity card, and you get a choice to choose whether the opportunity comes from the small pile or the big pile. And you have to get to and the opportunities on the small cards are that. They might be to invest in some shares at a low level. They might be to make some money on a sort of fairly safe bet. It might be some property. And they tell you the return and everything. And then the opportunity cards on the big opportunities, the investment levels are more risky. You've got to have a few dollars behind you to get into those opportunities. So, and it's supposed to be a reflection of life, as opportunity is all around you. And about 2.5 years ago, Ellie and I felt that we'd been picking from the small cards for too long. We'd been trading time for money. We'd been selling our services through coaching. We was doing okay, but we weren't in a position we could leverage anything. We couldn't systemize it. We couldn't sell it. And an opportunity came our way where it was sort of, I wouldn't say it was a huge opportunity, but it was a big opportunity. We looked at it as, well, we're going to pick a card from the big opportunity pile. And what it was is this online business, we could see it was scalable. And it was selling organic groceries, fruit and veg, or organic fruit and veg boxes. But we could see huge opportunity in it. The person running it at the time was a one-man band, and it was doing everything. And I could see straight away with my sort of systems background, and Tom, I know you're a process guy. I could see this. I could see that he was lacking structure and I could see that I could leverage my skills in there. And we felt that Ellie could provide some customer service, and the existing owner could do the sales. He was desperate to be better at what it was. And so that was the sort of premise for getting in, and we followed all due diligence and did as best we could and went through the getting to know the owner type thing and created the shareholder agreement, everything. And felt, let's go for this. And so Ellie was still looking after our small child and getting to become a mum. And I was doing some other stuff on this. Well, I was doing the coaching and consulting for other businesses and trying to systemize this other business on the side. And it took me about 3.5 months to systemize it to the point that the existing owner could concentrate on sales. But to cut a long story short, after that it just went pear-shaped, and we systemized this business and we made it scalable, and we decided to invest more, but we made the mistake. And I'm very happy. I'm eating a lot of humble pie. And I want your listeners to understand that I'm in a winter of my life at the moment, not a summer. Okay. And for the next 15 months, it just got progressively worse, but we couldn't see it. We were often thinking, no, if we just do that, it will get better. If we just do that, it will get better. But what was happening was the customers just weren't coming, or they were coming just enough to give us the encouragement to continue. But we were paying them and they weren't paying us. And we just believed it was going to take off. We were doing the right things. The feedback we were getting from our customers was good, but obviously it wasn't coming from enough customers. And I want your listeners to know that's there's a naivety on my part that must have been there. I did not understand it at the time, but it must have been there, and I take full responsibility for that. But what that led to is, as new parents, as trying to do 2 or 3 venture-making things at the same time, and something not going right, we hung on and hung on. We stayed in it on our own after the previous owner left, and we hung on because we wanted to make sure that we had given it everything without any excuses. But the result was we burned out. I'm a big person. I've read a lot and worked on myself, and I understand gratitude and living in the moment and being present. And the intellectual brain can rationalise all of that. But we were getting to the point where I was, for the first time in my life, I was shouting and screaming for help. I am unhappy. And the reason I was saying that was because we really weren't doing anything. We weren't doing anything on our health and fitness. We had no time for each other. We were trying to keep our daughter first and foremost, but money was disappearing left, right and centre. There was nothing to enjoy ourselves with, and it became very hard to show gratitude. Now, of course, in hindsight, you can be grateful for your health, and we kept our health, but I'd say we might have kept our physical health, but we weren't sleeping, and our mental well-being, it was all going to shop. And I think I started this. I started sharing this on the basis it was nearly a year ago. So it was about October the 19th, 2016. We probably took our last order, and something had happened on the Friday. Our cut-off date was so weekly cut-off was on Sunday. And something happened on the Saturday, and I had no problem confessing, Tom, it was a very dark day in my world. I had to walk out of the house and walk, and I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I had upon me. I think I had my phone. I had to leave the girls. I couldn't talk, and I knew I didn't know where to go from here. It reached such a low point. And I walked into a park, and I sat on a bench, and no one was around. And I knew the sun was going down. I knew I couldn't go home. Just couldn't talk. And I carried on walking. And I there's a forest that was on the back of a park, and I walked into a forest. And if you went through the forest, then you come to the sea. And I knew the ocean was the last point. And I just kept walking. And I thought, I'm not going home until it's dark, until the girls have gone to bed, and I don't have to talk to anyone. And I eventually got to the beach, and I sat on the beach staring at the ocean in the dark and the moon. And I don't know what thoughts were with me that day and how many times it ran around in my head. I did make a call to a mentor friend on the way who I trust implicitly to reflect on. And he was great. He's a good listener, and I don't even remember what he said. But in that process of that darkness, I came to the realization that we had to give up. I'm a resilient guy, and I'm a delayed gratification guy. I'm a invest in the future guy. In fact, to my detriment. And I'm a keep going. You never know when the chip in the stone. You never know when it's going to go. The sculpture's going to reveal itself. But this time it was no. I can't chip away any longer in the hope that this is going to work. And I went back to the house after dark, and I crawled into bed. And on the Sunday, I woke up and I shared this thought that we've got to close it with Ellie. And how about we do another couple of weeks just to get through October and fulfill our obligations and something or other. And she turned around and said, well, why if we're losing this much money, why do we wait 2 weeks? Why don't we just close now? And I thought about it, and she was right.
Right.
And so from going 100 miles an hour trying to make this business work, we in 24 hours, we were like, it's gone. It's all over. What now? And just created this vacuum that allow ourselves to come through the burnout, to fulfill our obligations. We were determined to leave the business not owing anyone any money, and we did that, but it all took time. We sold all our possessions. We did fire sales. We did everything we could, and we realised we couldn't stay in our house. We'd already sold one house to try and stay in the game, and we had got to a position we couldn't stay in the second house, the family home as it was then, and it was we just have to go. We just have to go and create a new life, and we didn't know where or what or who with, and it was not a good time. Like I said, I just turned 50. I'd had huge dreams that my 50th birthday would be a celebration. I would invite friends from all over the world to come and celebrate my success. Now, I created this vision a long time before I met Ellie, and a long time before I had my little girl, and a long time before we got into business. But the 50th come round and the reality wasn't there. The goals hadn't been achieved. Some parts had, but certainly financially they hadn't. And it was a very humbling experience to accept that all that you've believed in, all that you've worked for, you've worked on yourself, you've worked on your business, you still haven't cracked it. And in fact, you've gone backwards. But I did accept it, and we're still accepting it now. But we pretty much bought a one-way ticket out of what I perceived to be a dream life. It took me 17 years to find a place to call home, which had become New Zealand, and to become a New Zealand citizen, and to feel, I'm so proud to be a New Zealand citizen, and it's such a wonderful country. And then to find myself in a position that we need a change of scenery, and to leave that country was a huge step in our lives, and we're still carving out what we're doing next. So I feel like I should take a breath, Tom.
Yeah, no, I think that was, thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I love the metaphor that you mentioned there, like basically a stone cutter, right? Like, you were always you're always working towards a future, not necessarily living in the present, I think is fairly, that's implied.
Yeah.
And you shifted gears a year ago, and you're still trying to figure things out now. That's fine. We all are. But what's this last year been like now? With your wife and daughter.
So we took a bit of time out with Ellie's family in where she was brought up, which is in the North Island of New Zealand. And we literally bought we hired a one-way trailer, packed everything up, sold as much as we could, put whatever else was left in the roof of the house, rented it out, got a one-way trailer, and headed north to be with her family, and just to have a bit of some support mechanisms around us while we sort of, grieved and got through what we needed to get through until the mist cleared and we could focus on what we were going to do next. But I was talking to you offline about one of your previous podcasts, and then talk about there's always opportunity. And I think, that's where my own personal development, training and education, there was always going to be a diamond in the rough somewhere. And the diamond in the rough for us was that we taught ourselves that you can actually scale something, and we can scale something.
Right.
Or we can make it scalable. And online works. You can be in bed at night and people will get out their credit cards and pay you for your goods and services. And as long as you can add value, you will get paid. And we just had to come to terms with that. Whatever we thought we were doing right, and whatever compliments we were getting, we weren't adding enough value in that marketplace at that time. But that didn't mean we weren't valuable. We just needed to be in a different marketplace doing a different thing,
Yeah.
And you have to, it's really hard to get down on yourself, even when you're a really positive person, because so we were just going, no, look, we can't let what's happened define us.
Right.
We've had success before, and just because this didn't work and it's been a bigger hit, we played a bigger risk card and we drew a bigger opportunity card, and it didn't work for us. But it doesn't mean we're bad people. It doesn't mean we don't know what we're talking about. It doesn't mean we're not valuable. We've just got to reassess and pick up the gems. And during this process, we came across the phrase digital nomads. And I don't know if you've come across that, Tom, or your friends who you alluded to have done this.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's been in my vernacular for probably 5 to 7 years now. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, we hadn't, and we looked at it, and we was like, well, we love to travel, and we haven't been traveling. We could do some of this. There are skills we do have that could be location independent. And I guess there just came a point when, after a while of hanging out with the family and recuperating, we knew we had to move on. We couldn't be a burden to those people and didn't want to be. And we realised we just needed to go. We just needed to pick a spot and pick a lane and go. And Ellie has a health and fitness background. She'd written a book a few years ago, and we recognised that she probably had more content that was marketable sooner than the content that I had with my business background. So I said, well, why don't I take some time out to learn the skills needed to be online entrepreneurs, online marketers, SEO, all those things that I've put off in the past,
right? And
for your business, and upskill in that area, and we will leverage you as a health and fitness influencer. And that's really that's what the decision was. And so for the last 6 to 9 months, as it is now, we decided Southeast Asia was a typical digital nomad place to start because it's a low-cost way of living. And let's go there, reduce all our costs, and learn there. We found a co-working space, and we've just been building from there. And to reflect on where we were a year ago, the sun shines, we spend more time with our daughter, more time with each other. We're making new friends, new skills. The money's still not coming in to support ourselves. We're living off past successes, and there's a huge amount of risk associated with what we're doing, and it's not for everyone. But we do feel much happier. We feel lighter. We feel excited about the future, which we weren't a year ago. And we are doing things 6 months on that we weren't doing 6 months ago. So we're kind of proving to ourselves we are acquiring new skills that are making a difference. And onwards and upwards from here is how we feel.
Well, you kind of mentioned something earlier that you're not a failure, and I wanted to interject, but I bit my tongue, and I think here's the thing, and it's really about you put your family first. You and your wife did, and a lot of people wouldn't do that. I think our traditional values in society are they say family comes first, but what do? They would keep plugging away at some business opportunity and not reflect on how that's impacting their family. And that's and yeah, it's a risk, and it's only a risk because it's different, and there's not there's not a lot of mentors that you can have, although there's a million people that are doing this stuff now. So I don't think you took a risk. I obviously don't think you're a failure. I think you took the best road you could have taken, and that's putting your wife and daughter first. So
no. And I want to be careful. I wanted to use that word failure because it's not been in my vernacular. It's not part of
I didn't.
But I realise it is. Listeners and people who are working on themselves. People's self-esteem and people's view of themselves. I've been shocked by how much baggage people are carrying around, and it's just incredible. And the words they use to describe themselves and wire their brain is incredible. And so I was aware that my self-talk had changed, and circumstances do that to you. They test you. And, a lot of our friends and family said, well, why don't you just go and get a job? And both Ellie and I just couldn't accept that.
Yeah, so, I get that.
And they're dead right. On one level, they are dead right. Yeah, why don't you just go and get a job? But we was like, no, we wouldn't be true to who we are and what we stand for. And we just need to try again. We just need to keep going and keep going. And keep learning, keep going back to, we would eventually stumble upon who we're valuable to, who pay us accordingly.
Right.
And we can feel that happening. We can feel that happening. We can feel opportunity. More things are happening for us than there were 6 months ago. So like I said, I repeat, things we have been learning over the last 6 months are creating new opportunities for us. And that is so exciting. That is just so exciting. And I feel like a kid, I have a young child keeping me young, and I feel like a kid. I've always felt like a kid. Life's to be lived, and that's what Parenting Passports and Profits is about. It isn't about being quote unquote successful. It isn't about being quote unquote financially free. It's just about living life and grabbing those moments to embrace all the world has to offer. And it isn't what your colleagues might want for you. It isn't what your friends want for you. It isn't what your family wants for you. It's what you want for yourself and how you can make. I've talked about being born in England and proud to be a New Zealand citizen, but I've always seen myself as a global citizen. I lived in America when I was younger. That was a turning point in my life. I've lived on different places and I've never seen myself tied to one nationality. I've got friends all over the world and I'm very proud of that. And we can't wait to make more friends around the world.
Well, I think, what you're exercising here is patience and gratitude. I mean, you're working a process, and you keep saying, you've said this a couple of times. You're compared to 6 months ago, you're even in a better place today. So there's the gratitude, and then you've got the patience. You see that it is working. The process is working. So. Well, so I'm kind of curious now. We've got your history. We know where you're at today, but in this past year, as well as just like what you're doing now, what habits do you have, for yourself and your family to make sure that you're always, that you're not getting stuck, that you're not going back to where you were, or have you seen other parts of your life that you've had these light bulb moments on, saying, "Ooh, have always done X," and now you're realizing that, especially now that you're in, Southeast Asia, the culture is different and everything like that.
Yeah. I think we are practicing being present and enjoying the now, but also taking a continued round of taking action, constant taking action. So, and a mantra that I've got known for in the past, and it's coming home to roost on myself, is progress, not perfection.
Yes.
Because you'd be totally aware, creating a podcast and all that goes with that, trying to make it in the online world, even your own background in IT process, it is never ending. It is never, ever ending. And if you look at the so-called experts or the gurus, you're always, I heard you say, Tom, you never arrive. And that's it. You never arrive.
Right.
So you've got to enjoy the journey, and that's you've got to enjoy the journey, and that's quite cliche. But in order, by definition of being on a journey, you have to keep moving. You have to keep taking action. So I think it's something that another cliche is the work-life balance, and that's something that I've adjusted my thoughts on that. And I think a lot of us say work-life balance is because everyone knows what you're talking about when you mention it. But there's no such thing really as work-life balance, because work is part of life. And I would much prefer to say play-work balance, but no one really understands what that is. And then other people say, well, it's not even balance, because you're never, balance is about always being in equilibrium. Well, no one's ever in total equilibrium all the time. You are counterbalancing all the time. And I can't remember who shared that with me a little while ago, but I really like that analogy, that it's just counterbalance. There are different periods in your life that you have to focus on certain things. And so
I was going to say, this work-life balance, part of me, I believe it's more of a corporate use of words to make us feel good. I truly believe, this work-life balance, because I feel if you have a job or a career that if you really are passionate about it and you love it, it's not going to seem like work.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're separated from your family and friends potentially, 40 plus hours a week that you're there. And you do need to have that quote balance in your life. But if you're going, it's one thing if you go to a job, 40 hours a week that you hate going to, you dread it, it gives you anxiety, it gives you, heart palpitations, if it gives all of that versus going to a job 40 hours a week that you're excited about, you love telling people about what it is that you do, that you can share that passion because you have that person, imagine two people with those two different roles, then both of those people come home. That person that hates their job, they're bringing that negative energy into their household now, whereas that person that loves their job, they're bringing that energy back into their home. To me, that's, kind of the work-life balance. Like, make sure you're doing something. If you are out doing a job for someone else, make sure it's something that you enjoy and that aligns with your values and principles.
Yeah, and you could extend that outside of the work, which is why I think that the
Yes.
phrase itself as work is the wrong term, but it's now too ingrained, in the atmosphere that it's just the anchor phrase that people latch onto. But I know that this podcast itself is about how can you up-rev your lifetime to be the best you can be. That's one of your core principles, isn't it? It's the reason you're doing this.
Absolutely.
And you're putting all this effort in on the side. Now, you said something in one of your podcasts that makes me think that you've got a 17-year-old child. And I don't know if you have other children.
Yeah, 13 and a 17, yeah.
Yeah, so you might be doing 45 hours a week in your job that you've said many times that you love. And you've still got to bring the best you home to your 13-year-old and your 17-year-old and your wife and your other friends and your podcast listeners now. So
yeah.
So the balance is really, how do you create an environment that brings the best you 24/7, regardless of how you make up your 24/7? Because we weren't in corporate, so we weren't. Work-life balance wasn't a corporate thing for us. We might have put it into a corporate context, but New Zealand's not really full of many corporate companies. It's a small nation, and there isn't that many big companies, full stop. It's full of small businesses. So work-life balance, I can totally understand where you're coming from, and I bet there's a lot of cynics about work-life balance inside large corporate organisations that don't
I'm sure there are.
Yeah, and only pay lip service to it. But there's people only paying lip service to it in small businesses as well. So it's down to the individual to carve out their best life and be aware. I totally agree with you. If you are unhappy about something, stop moaning and do something.
Agreed. I agreed. Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be work, Tom. It doesn't have to be work. If it's a relationship, if it's a hobby, if that hobby's not fulfilling you anymore, why continue doing it?
Right. Yeah. There's the sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, I've already invested all this money, so I should do it. Or I've already invested all this time, so I should stay in this relationship, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's just like, no. And, to follow that on with another issue is like confirmation bias. We only seek opinions that confirm the opinion that we have. It's crazy when you get into like social psychology or just psychology as a whole. How we are our worst enemy. We tend to put up a lot of blocks and that we don't even know that we're doing. So I think it's good to have. You mentioned earlier about having that support network. It's really important that you have that. That social circle, friends or family or whomever it is to help you to see some of those blind spots and to hold your hand and get you through those if that's what's needed.
Yeah, and those people can come from random. I think, Tom, I don't want to precede a question that I've heard you ask before, but that those friends and support mechanisms can actually come from very random places, and not necessarily be friends or family or work colleagues or anyone you even knew. They can come by you spotting or hearing something at that moment in time, and it causes you to shift your belief or your perception or your willingness to take action.
Just like this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with you, Colin. I think a lot of insight here, and it's great to hear how you did this pivot, a year ago, and where that's taking you on this journey. And I didn't know you a year ago, obviously, but it just sounds like in your voice that you've got a lot of passion around this, and just a lot of joy in your life. It's kind of what I'm hearing, come out of you. And
I didn't have that a year ago. And I'm an upbeat guy. I'm a positive thinker. I love mentoring and bringing the best out of other people. And then when you find yourself in a hole where you are not you, it's not a nice place to be. So we definitely feel like we've come out the other side of that. Our natural selves are coming back, and we're just thoroughly. I mean, Ellie's just doing some amazing stuff, and she's pushing boundaries. We're both pushing new boundaries all the time, and a lot of the time it doesn't work, but we don't really care anymore, because we've totally embraced minimalism. We are traveling with 2 suitcases, also 2 backpacks and a suitcase. And in that, we've got everything we need to be a family and run our online businesses. And there's something quite therapeutic. I didn't plan this and would not have maybe done it without the impetus of what happened. But there is something about being traveling with all this with this little baggage. Our lives are extremely light. We are not caught up in. We don't have to wash cars. We don't have to iron shirts. We don't have to keep gardens and clean and tidy and maintenance and all these things. And every minute, and Tom, going back to your process, I look at that through the lens of every minute that I'm not doing one of those chores is another minute with my daughter. It's another minute with my partner. It's another minute being a bit more healthy. It's another minute practicing being a better person or helping someone else. Every minute that I'm not doing one of those low-value things. And I did not expect it, but we are thoroughly enjoying not having cars. That is just amazing. I've driven all this time and loved being in my car and putting my CD on and whatever and driving on the open road in New Zealand. But there's something about not having a car that has just been so lightening. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, I get it. First off, I think some people are gonna have a hard time swallowing the those small things, But I loved how you said that. Like, hey, if I don't have to water this plant, that's a minute of my time I get to spend with my daughter, and it really puts first things first, and you truly are prioritizing what's important in your life.
Yeah. Tommy, are you familiar? I mean, Tommy, are you familiar with, especially with your background, the 10 minutes a day? What difference that can make on your life?
Yeah.
And I that was maybe we should share that with the listeners. But 10 minutes a day over a whole year adds up to a week, and so people think you give them a suggestion for how you can improve a process or something, and they hear that it only takes a minute. I can do that. It only takes a minute. It only takes me 5 minutes. I'd rather carry on doing it. And they don't understand that it only takes 10 minutes. If you could just say 10 minutes a day, every day, of something that could be done better, that is a whole working week per year.
Yeah.
So for every 10 minutes, you can be more effective or efficient or get rid of something that is not adding to your life. That opens up another week. That could be a week of earning money. That could be a week of holidaying. That could be a week of family time. That could be a week of hobby. And that's only 10 minutes. What would happen if you saved half an hour a day or an hour a day?
Yeah, like months.
Yeah.
No, and I've had these discussions. I'll have a friend who's like, well, I have this motorcycle and it's, $300 a month for my payment. And, again, living in New England, there's like 5 or 6 months out of the year that you can't ride because, So, I'm like, all right, so it's like, let's say $2,000 and how much do you make? All right. So you're working, even if you love your job, it doesn't matter. Like, you're working, let's say, a full 1 to 2 to 3 weeks purely to pay for something that's sitting in a garage for half the year.
Yeah.
Let's kind of reframe that. Let's get rid of that thing. And now you can use that money to travel, for, 2 to 3 weeks, or to take a course, or, anything, even like that's just a different perspective. But I'm with you, man. 10 minutes a day is nothing.
No. As long as you've got that willingness to examine the process, whatever that might be. So.
Well, I think that's a good segue, and maybe that's what it is. But just kind of go on to some of the wrap up questions, Colin. You've had this quite transformation in the last year, and you're definitely passion filled with joy with what you're doing now, and I've got a lot of cool takeaways already. But what would what would be your parting guidance to someone out that's listening today and they're looking to change?
For me, you got to accept sometimes that what you're doing isn't working, and be willing to. You talked about the sunk cost scenario, Tom. And I've come across that in my academic and intellectual background, and we have to let go of the sunk costs. So, and I can't remember if we was talking online or offline, but get out of the way of your own ego. I mean, it's taken a lot for me to admit at age 50 and now 51, I'm starting all over again. We slipped right down the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it got very basic for us. Okay?
Yeah.
How are we going to put a roof over our head, and how are we going to feed and clothe and water ourselves and go again? Now, yes, we could have got jobs and gone for that security, but we would not have been who we are. So accepting that, and so no, we're gonna pursue our dreams. We're not giving up on our dreams and our visualization of what we want for ourselves. And we had a big drive for us is that we want to homeschool our daughter, and once we realised we could do it travelling, well, it's world school. The world is a classroom.
Yes.
And so once we were present for what we were doing was not working, and we weren't going to let it define us, then our ego was any ego that existed. I've never considered myself an egotistical person, but we're all egotistical to a degree. When you're not trying to live someone else's life, then it was a lot easier to let go. And now we're embracing that minimalism, and we're embracing that. And we're not saying it's for everyone. And if anyone's listening to this journey is not easy.
Right.
Do not go on this journey if you're looking for a cruisy ride just because you're following family first. You still got a heck load and work to do. If you've laid some foreground and you've got money behind you, and you've got location independent skills, that definitely helps you get ahead quicker. But there's still another learning curve in my experience,
right,
to embrace a different way of life and be comfortable with it. So, and then the part B to your question is you just take action, just keep moving. Tom, I listen to podcasts regularly now as part of my own UpRev pathway, and I do my best to do is that I often listen to them walking to work about 3 times a week, because Ellie and I trade working days. And as soon as I get into the office, invariably we use a co-working space. I'm often the first one here and there's no one there. and I'm sweaty and I usually take a shower, but one of the first things I do is, what did I just hear? And what am I going to do with that? And and I've heard you talk about that. But sometimes all I need to do is thank the podcast provider, because I might not have a real take home from that particular one, but I know that podcast person, and I know you've talked about this, they're putting a lot of time and effort into getting this podcast up and running, and sometimes just actually giving them a thank you and reminding them that they're making a difference is all I need to do. And sometimes just pinging off that email to even if it's just to their virtual assistant, I know that they felt appreciated, and that might be all I need to do.
Yeah, no, and I think that's it's true. I mean, it's just another way of showing gratitude. But and I know I have talked about this. Like, the world is becoming, especially the Western world, we just consume, and we don't take action. So, taking that like 5 minutes just to sit there and like, okay, what did I just listened to this podcast? What did I learn? What can I do? What can I implement? Or just what lessons learned did you take from it? Hopefully, if it's an entertainment podcast, well, okay, maybe you got a good joke out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, there's something, you're listening to it for a reason.
Absolutely.
Get out of it?
Absolutely. And it's funny you should say that, because I just started listening last week to a new podcast that probably was the first one I'd listened to that was just really for storytelling. It was family adventure.
Yeah.
But the guy wasn't trying to upsell anything or direct you to he wasn't even trying to send you to his webpage or anything like that at the end. It was just literally, he got on the phone, he interviewed some inspirational families, and then he got off. And all you got to hear was these fantastic stories. But I was like, there's still a reason why I listened to this, because whatever I heard in the story, there was a to-do for me there, even if it was just to share it with Ellie or something like that. So there's always something, even when it's just entertainment.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny. After I interview, I actually go download to my wife, hey, this is what I learned. And obviously that helps me put the show notes together. But speaking of show notes, what's the best way to contact you? I know I've got a number of links and I'll put those in the show notes, but what's your preferred method?
Probably our Facebook page is where we can engage the most. So the website is www.parentingpassportsandprofits, all spelled out, .com. And I confess, Tom, off the top of my head, I can't remember what the Facebook URL is, but I know I've given it to you. So
it'll all be in the show notes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
that'll be all there.
I'm not 100% sure whether the website was live when I first sent you all of that information, but the website is now live, and so that's a way to read a little bit more about the story and check us out.
Okay, great. Is there anything that you guys or your wife, your family are working on right now that you'd like to share with the audience?
There's heaps. I want to engage with more people like myself, and maybe a little bit younger, but certainly families that are thinking about doing this or have just started on this journey. And I know they exist because I want to, similar to yourself, I've made myself accountable. If you go to the website, you'll see there is a podcast page, and I have one podcast on there, and that is me saying that I am going to do a podcast, and I've put it on there. It is completely unprofessional. It's about 15 minutes long. It was recorded in a bedroom back in New Zealand, and it was before we left, and I haven't let go of the concept. The timing's not quite right to put all my energies into making it work, but I definitely want to know who are the families that would be willing to be interviewed and talk about their story, because if my story's added any value to anyone else's life, I know there are hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of families that are way ahead. Not that it's a comparison journey, that have been doing it a lot longer. As you said, you've got friends. I want to tell those stories. I want to tell those stories to many more people so that people who end up following us realize that it's doable, it's possible, and there are hundreds and thousands of different ways. We are not alone, and I want to share those stories. So if you're out there and you can resonate with what I'm saying and you'd like to be on a podcast, I'm starting one. I'd like to interview you, and you can tell me your story.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for, coming on today. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd be remiss if we didn't discuss or have you bring up?
No, I feel like we've. I just hope that someone gets something and takes some action. And I know you're trying to grow your podcast, Tom, and I much appreciate the invite, and I hope I've been of some value to you and your listeners.
Oh, absolutely. And, thank you so much for your time and for coming on, Colin. I greatly appreciate it. There's a lot of great takeaways in this episode with Colin, but, I think minimalism, this has come up time and time again on the show. And, while he said it's not for everyone, I completely agree with that. But, it's interesting to hear about this. A lot of people complain that they just don't have the resources to get things done, or they need that one room in their house just to get them to the next level, be that an office or whatever. And here, Colin is with his entire family traveling around the world. And I think he said, like a suitcase and a backpack for each of them. And not only are they traveling, but they have everything they own in that, luggage. They don't have a car, they don't have a house, and they are traveling with their family and doing new business ventures, so you don't need all this crazy stuff. And, and the other thing he talks about is, if you only can save 10 minutes a day, whether that's watering a plant or putting gas in your car or whatever it is, 10 minutes a day adds up to like over 60 hours a year. And, how many multiple 10 minutes are you spending each day on something that you really do not need? Anyway, that was some of the good stuff I took away from this. What were some of the good things you took away?
Thanks for listening to the UpRev Ninja podcast with your host, Tom Hudson. Navigate to our website at uprev.ninja today, where you will find additional resources to help you discover the best version of you. While you're there, join our newsletter and join the discussion on your favorite social media platforms. We've got some awesome guests lined up to share with us how they are becoming the best versions of themselves.
If you haven't, please head on over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review for the show. By doing so, this helps the show get noticed by more listeners and helps spread the word of how to discover the best version of yourself. Also, if you have any feedback about the show or a guest that you would like, please go to my website, https://uprev.ninja and contact me. This week's review comes from Don Hutchison. I just enjoyed Tom Hudson's recent interview with Claes Opulencia, a 22-year-old writer and journalist. Tom's mission is to share the experiences and insights from people at different stages of their careers to help us all discover the best version of you. Well done and much needed. Wish you great success, Tom.